I just wanted to say I rely on my fellow commissioners. This is going to be my first budget workshop, and I appreciate all the work you've already done, looking it over and communicating through the county manager. So I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and start off.
Can't hear you.
Okay. Going over left to right.
I'll pick your microphone. Sorry.
Anyways, let's go ahead and start off. Just go away from left to right and introduce yourselves, please. Is that better? Any better? No. Better?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Aaron Flynn, USDA Wildlife Services.
Chief Deputy Clerk.
Cardinals, County Farmers.
Joe Martinez, Deputy Assessor.
Christy Graham, Vice County Assessor.
Deputy.
Simpson with the State Sheriff's Office.
Jonah Delta, Colfax County Manager's Office.
Somebody else up there, IT.
Tim Martinez, IT.
Thank you all very much for coming today. I'll go ahead and hand it over to Jonathan.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners, County Manager, County Clerk. So today I'd like to start off this budget workshop by allowing those present to address the commission for miscellaneous appropriation requests. The first person that I have, or the first person that I have in the packet is Colfax County Foster Grandparents and Senior Companion Programs. They have made a requisition, or they have made a request for funding, and Ms. Remy Garcia is here to speak to the commission.
Good morning. I submitted my request on April 17th.
We get her.
How about now? Yeah. It's on. Is it better? My name is Remy Garcia. Why not? My name is Remy Garcia.
Now you're on. Now you're off. One person.
It's still red.
So,
All right. How's that? My name is Remy Garcia. Next time you ask grandparents. Since you're all here, I'll give you a little bit about these programs. I've been program director for 20 years. We've been in Colfax County for 32 years. As long as I've been interactive, we've always received funds from Colfax County. We also have the Colfax County. Colfax County transfer. We also transfer volunteers to conferences and other your Saturday education. That has how they really want and maintain. I want to thank you for continuing support to our programs. Without the local funding that we receive from the county, we limited environment to be able to continue to receive federal funds for our programs. our programs have received a federal increase. So we were able to recruit more volunteers. Right now, we have 33 senior companions that serve Colfax County. We have 13 foster grandparents that work in the schools for children of any type of needs, to special needs, but our scope is finding the kids with any type of identified need. So our programs have grown since I took over as the director. We're asking for 40,000 this year to continue the services that we provide to the citizens of Colfax County. If you have questions, I'd like to answer them. Yes,
Fellow commissioners?
I don't have any questions.
I,
Yeah, so do we get any type of quarterly reports from you guys on the services that you provide?
I never had to do those, but if that's something that I need to do, I would be more than happy to provide this to you. I can give you numbers of miles traveled, hours worked, citizens, you know, the number of citizens that we serve in the community.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting because in your letter, you stated that you provided 120,000 miles of transportation to Colfax County citizens. And I don't know if you're aware or not, but the commission just went through the process of getting, establishing a relationship with Golden Spread to provide transportation to our citizens. And I'm just curious, you know, if there's overlap there. I mean, who's getting this 120,000 miles? Is it, are these residents throughout the county that are receiving this, or this?
So our program is we serve seniors that are mostly homebound, that don't have transportation. Our volunteers serve one-on-one in the house. They provide companionship. They can take them grocery shopping, meal paying. If they're unable to leave the house, then the volunteer will do those chores for them, like paying their bills for them, picking up groceries for them. What this money is used for is to help reimburse those volunteers at 36 cents a mile. Our grant from the federal government and our grant from the state do not cover mileage at all. They just reimburse the volunteers at $4. It's a stipend.
So how do people qualify for this service?
Anybody that's 19 years of age and has any type of disease, they could be grief support, they could be, we pretty much provide services to anybody. We go in and do an assessment, or the assessment of the kind of thing, how many hours of service you need. But mostly the transportation is for people who don't have cars or who are not able to drive.
What about the customers? Maybe I misunderstood. I was wondering, how do your people that you serve?
We get a lot of referrals from doctors' offices. We get referrals from like the rehabilitation centers for people.
So are there like income qualifications? Are there age qualifications? Could be anybody.
Age qualification. And so most of our clients though are probably in their 60s years old. But we do serve anybody that's 19 and older. It is senior people. The foster grandparent programs for they serve in the schools. And so our volunteers that serve in the schools, they get mileage reimbursement from their house to the school and back. It's not a lot, like I said, it's 36 cents a mile. We try to compensate for this.
Thank you.
my only question, I know you answered quite a few of them. With the mileage, you guys go outside of Colfax County?
We go as far as like over the hill to Trinidad, but that's pretty much as far as we go. We
So
try
how
to
much
keep
doctor
it-
appointment sales was that?
Yeah, we don't go that far. We used to at one point, now in the van, if we have a few people that need like, if we have a group of clients that need to be transported, say to Saturday or to Taos or then we. That's something we send out a monthly newsletter, or we say we have a trip plan for such and such date, if you can put your medical appointments within that time frame, then we could take you.
Is that a big, by chance?
Excuse me?
Is that newsletter by email?
No, we print it and we send it to our clients by mail. Mhm.
I have a really good question, Remy. It says this year National Senior Corp entered into agreement with the Department of Veteran Affairs. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's something new that we started. I haven't really gotten like all the information on it, but that is something that Senior Corps and the Veterans Affairs is working on. So we, as soon as I get the language from them, everything that needs to be done, I'll be in touch with the veterans here, the veterans office, and see if we can, if anybody needs transportation, or we have a problem with that, provide transportation to their clients as well. To and from the clinic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, the request of $40,000 has been included in the budget that is being presented to you today.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Jonah, how much did we issue them last year?
Let me check.
And also, don't they reside in one of our buildings?
Oh, yes, yes. The citizens with the, for the developmentally disabled, that gave rent to building. Yes, it is all built in there, not funded, so. They're grant funded, and we provide the, local match. For their grant.
What is, I don't understand, we provide the local match?
So the $40,000 that they request is part of their grant requirements for the local match.
Oh, I see. So in that grant, the local match is required to be cash, it can't be in kind?
I'm not certain.
I'm just curious, if we're providing a building, I don't know the value of that is. Seems like that would be potentially in time.
I'm not sure. We've always given miscellaneous appropriations. It looks like last year budgeted was $33,000, so it was a $7,000 decrease.
That is an interesting question. Do they pay rent? That's all part of the thing. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Flumen with USDA,
Well, I'm in agreement with USDA wildlife services. This year, for fiscal year 24, we're requesting $43,250. The funding helps to go for vehicles, purchase supplies, other expenses that we have on the job, and our services are we predator management for benches, skunk control for any of the towns in the county, prairie dog control, pretty much any wildlife problems that are having to work on.
Thank you. Commissioners, did you have any questions?
My only question is just the same thing on these groups, one, do we know
That's a $3,000 increase
3,000?
from what was budgeted last year. Yes, sir.
Commissioner? I don't have anything to.
And if any of y'all need cards, I'll be happy to do one with you if y'all are having problems.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
I'm still waiting on the invite to go coyote.
We're not really allowed to do that.
I promise you, I was trying to figure out a way.
Here's the staff, I'll leave with y'all.
I'm actually using this.
Yeah,
This is
I actually caught a skunk on size property on Sunday. Yeah, he has a raccoon that is a little too big for the trap right now, so I need to get a bigger trap. So we'll figure.
Next, we have the Colfax County Extension Service. Mr. Lopez is unable to appear today before the commission. He had a conflicting scheduled a scheduled conflict to come up. He's actually preparing for the state shooting competition at the NRA. But he has made a request of $104,096. And that is also an increase from last year. And that is $9,415 increase. But so, okay, I guess maybe I should clarify this. So the actual request is for 110,000. But if that's not possible, he will also just take the same request as last year of $104,096.
So it's only, last year was 104, so it's only a $6,000 increase? Or 5,000?
Last year was, I'm sorry, last year was 100,585,000.
So
He,
this year's a 4,000, 3,500, some odd change.
yes. But his actual needs is 110,000. So I actually budgeted the 110,000. So the total increase was $9,415. And he would like to come to our next budget workshop. I don't see anybody from the senior citizens program here. Their request for the Raton Senior Citizens Program did not change. It was 150,000. And then yesterday, I think you did see the request come through from Eagle Nest. That did not make it into this budget because it just got it yesterday. However, it looks like they're requesting 59,000, and last year budgeted was 57,200.
2,000
Yes, sir. 2,000.
and change.
Yeah. And then the last request is from the New Mexico State Library. I don't believe anybody is here for that as well. And they requested $1,000 for the rural book photo and serves the communities of Maxwell, Miami, and the Mayo Park Ranch and Center. So if nobody has any questions on that, we can move on to our actual 2023-2024 budget, preliminary one. The first one I believe that is in your packet is the preliminary 75% regular para and 75% para law enforcement. So this was actually brought to our attention as an option by the Sheriff Baca. He did the research on this and worked with para to kind of figure out how this could be a benefit to the county and how we would go about approving it. So in 2022, para voted to increase para contributions, half a percentage beginning in 2022 and increase both the employee and the employer portion all the way through 2026. So in 2024 fiscal year, the municipal plan 2 the employee portion will go up to 11.65%. And the employer portion will increase to 10.80% for the municipal plan, which is just our regular para. For the municipal plan police plan 4, the employee portion will increase to 14.85%, and the employer portion will go to 20.15%. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. What was the number for the employee of the regular employees?
11.65%.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Tim, what was the
Employer portion is 10.8. And then did you need me to repeat the municipal police plan? So as I explained in your email that I gave you, we were able to actually, there's several resolutions for commission approval if this is something that you want to move forward on. But how this will affect the employees is commission can vote to approve 75% of the employee portion to be picked up by commission. So the total county contributions for regular para would increase from 10.80 to 19.54%. And the employee contribution would decrease from 11.65 to 2.9%. So whenever you calculate that, employees, and this would affect all employees, elected officials included who participate in para, would actually see an increase in their take-home salary. But the contribution amounts would still be the same that they gave to para. It would just, the county would pick up the 75%.
So what does that equate to, basically a raise to the employees? Because, right, you're gonna have to give them a raise in order for their, I mean, how is that gonna be done? Or do we just add the amount to the county's portion?
Yes, sir. So how it's budgeted right now is, I'll just use the commission as an example because they're the first one on the salary list. Commission salary is budgeted at the same annual salary as it is for state statute. The only increase is the para portion of the deductions increased from 10.80% to 19.54%. And then the employee portion on the payroll will actually decrease from 11.65% to 2.9%.
So they are decreasing the amount that they would have to pay.
Yes, sir.
So it is in effect a raise.
Yes.
And
It's
just-
not a salary increase, so to speak, but it would be more in your take home amount, in your take home salary.
And this, just so I'm clear, this was calculated just for the sheriff's office or every?
Originally, it was supposed to, it was in the sheriff's request. However, in visiting the sheriff and doing the research and consulting with the county manager, we actually could do it for all employees. So this is what the 75% is on this salary schedule. It's for all employees across the board.
Premium one includes everything?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
And it's my understanding that if the county opts to do this, they can never go back.
Yes, that is true. So in the resolution that I sent you a copy of from Para, it is an option if the county does pass this resolution. Next year, we cannot receive it. It has to maintain, we have to maintain that percentage. This has been, so throughout the affiliates, we did kind of do a little bit of research. And in our communication, the majority of the counties are taking this option. They're taking this option to increase the percentage of the parent contributions picked up by the county. And the other option that a lot of them are also looking to is by picking up either 95 to 100% of health insurance benefits as well. Just because, you know, the workforce is so competitive, the salary increases, a lot of counties didn't have the ability to continue to give percentages or COLAs, cost of living, or salary increases to staff. So this year has kind of made counties and municipalities try to kind of think out of the box and look at other options to kind of try to recruit and maintain some of their employment. And this is something that would actually be beneficial for all elected officials. Kind of the norm is that elected officials have been kind of stagnant over the past 2 years. Now have been able to, you know, get the salary increases to be competitive with their employees. The employee salaries are kind of increasing, and we're in a lot of positions, salary employees are getting close to elected officials. So this wouldn't necessarily be a salary increase, however, it would put a little bit of extra money in those elected official pockets. That would not be in violation of state statute.
But it kind of has the effect of an increase in salary. We're just taking on more of the expense.
Yes, sir.
From them. Do we know what percentage that would be? I mean, is there, because we're talking about also doing a 5% COLA. And just comparatively, do we know what kind of percentage impact that would have on our staff as far as their take-home pay?
I calculated mine personally just so I could see if this would be something beneficial for the employees or if it would be more beneficial for health insurances. In my opinion, not a whole lot of employees, not every employee actually participates in health insurance.
Yeah.
So I felt like this was a little bit more consistent across the board because I think everybody participates in her unless you're a contracted employee. And in my calculation for my personal salary, it calculated to be an additional $5,000 a year.
And what that's 10%, right?
Yes,
For you,
yes. 11%.
11%.
Yes, sir.
Pay increase effectively.
Yes, sir. This is calculated at 75%, but there are options where you can, that's the maximum you can go. There is an option to do 50%, and then there's an option to do 50%. With this option, we were able to produce a balanced budget. So, I mean, again, I did include all of the GRTs that we are not able, that we didn't have to earmark, so that does include additional 112, the hold harmless, indigent care, and the environment. And that does produce a balanced budget. So that would be off to the side, 6,674. So that is one of the options that,
And so the two, besides the general fund, the two funds below it, the 112, I forgot what they're called, but those two funds below it. The general, yeah, the 112 and then the HHGRT. Are there restrictions on the expenditures of those revenues?
no, sir. So the additional 112 and the full-timeless GRT are considered general fund money. We do actually have some debt service that affects one of them. However, because over the past 3 years, I want to say, we have not had to use any of the full-timeless or the additional 112 to pay the debt service because we've been able to generate enough revenue to actually pay that debt service without having to intercept the additional 112 or the GRT or the full-timeless.
So in order to do this, are you going to have to do a transfer of funds out of those two? I guess, I mean, they're both called general fund, but they're different fund numbers. So you have to do a transfer out of that to the 101 to pay the 101 expenses.
No, sir, there was a de-earmarcation, I think that took effect in 2020, I believe. And it actually de-earmarked all of the GRTs. So indigent care is no longer earmarked. The environmental is no longer earmarked. Commission only voted to continue to earmark the fire excise tax. They earmark it for fire and emergency. Everything else, including the additional 112 full-time GRT, the county environmental GRT, and the indigent care are no longer earmarked and actually can be used for general fund. So that could be used for operational use. It is tracked in a separate fund, however, it's all considered general fund.
And Jonah, didn't the sheriff, when we sat down with him, I think he actually did a very good job on this, and looking at different options and stuff. And of course, the sheriff, his intent is hiring and retention, and providing what's best for law enforcement in that aspect. And when John and I looked at this, we think the sheriff came up with a really good idea to actually put more cash in employees' pockets. And that's why we went ahead and kind of looked at this as a reasonable way to proceed. And also use the same thing for the rest of the employees. Like Jonah said, it would benefit everybody, which we felt was more fair.
But if he's looking for additional employees, I mean, salary isn't going to go up. So when he goes out and advertises for a position, it's going to be the same. And he's going to have to explain to people, and they're going to have to understand what we're doing with this. I mean, wouldn't it be better just to give them a 10% raise?
Well, I think some of the things that go into, consideration whenever you're doing salary increases, especially for lots of departments, is that, if you look at the sheriff's salary schedule, I just pulled it up. You have a lot of your upper staff getting very close to not only your sheriff and your under sheriff. So, I think maybe the idea is to maybe still continue to create a little bit of separation between those positions, but also be able to, award staff more money, without exceeding your undersheriff in your elected positions. I don't really know, I don't think that it's really probably to that level with the other elected officials. But I know that it is kind of gotten, there's not a big gap between the sheriff and the undersheriff with a lot of the sergeants within the sheriff's department. So, I mean, if you were to award them an 11% increase, that would really narrow that gap between your elected officials and your undersheriff.
I mean, I know, I mean, it may not look good on paper, but, unfortunately, the sheriff's salary is dictated by the state, and
Yes.
that bill didn't pass again this year to raise salaries. But if the concern is recruiting people, it just, to me, I think it'd be more efficient to give a 10% raise, because then you could go in and, say you're starting people off at 60,000 instead of 54,000, or whatever the numbers are.
And I also think that the intent of this is also to actually retain staff as well. I think so much effort has gone into the recruiting, that there's been a lot of, the grant funding has been, a lot of the grants that were received by the sheriff's department have been focused on recruiting. And so a lot of the staff that has been on board hasn't been able to benefit off of a lot of those. So, I think that maybe perhaps some of the direction or some of the thought process in doing this is actually to help retain staff as well. I know that was our idea when we decided to look into it for all of our staff. Because, being able to maintain staff is important.
It is, and when we had the discussion with the sheriff, and unfortunately, he couldn't be here today.
It's
But,
like he's logged in.
well, he's logged in, but this was his preferred request to the manager's office, is that he felt that this would help retain the staff.
Well, and I think it would also, in the long haul, put more money in everybody's pocket than a raise would. Because taxes and everything, I think this would, and I think Jonah stated that when she said what the effect would be for her. I think financially, as a benefit to staff, this would be far better than the full percentage raise.
And why would that be more? I mean, if we gave them the same amount of money, we just called it a raise instead of paying their para fees, why would that be more money in their pocket?
Well, partially is because the salary increase that we proposed on the other schedule that we'll get to is 5%. But when you calculate the additional pickup from the para, it's gonna calculate more, probably anywhere from 10 to 15%. I know the sheriff's department, for example, is the employee contribution or the employer contribution will increase to 31.29% when it was 20.15, and the employee contributions for the sheriff's department would decrease from 14.85% to 3%.
Yeah, but I think you missed my point is if we figured out what the money is, and we paid more money, and it netted out the same, their salaries would be higher, they get the same money in their pocket. But, and with their salaries higher, when you put an ad in a newspaper, it's gonna look better than trying to explain that the county covers a portion of your pay.
Yeah, I believe without probably working it out, I mean, in my calculation, and this is just my opinion, I haven't worked it out, but I mean, that would be probably having to give the sheriff's department probably a 15 to 20% increase in order for it to.
But what's the difference? We're just, instead of giving them an increase, we're paying for their pay, it's still cash out of the county's coffers.
20% increase in salary is gonna affect your FICA, it's gonna affect all of your deductions, including, it's gonna affect not only your FICA and your Medicare, but it's also gonna affect the employer portion of the retirement, as well as the retiree healthcare portion. So I think that the impact of the increase of salary is actually gonna be probably a lot more expensive, than just approving the increase of parent contributions.
I think it could all be worked out. But the other thing that just occurred to me is when you go to retire, since your retirement's based on your salary, if you gave it as a raise, it would actually impact their retirement.
Yes, that is true.
It would positively.
Because it goes after-
And by
after-
paying part of error, it's not going to improve their retirement any.
Yes, it does, it actually would, paras is calculated after your 3 highest years. So this would go into increasing the, employee. I mean, it would affect the employee, right now, but it wouldn't have any bearings in their actual salary increase towards that. So, I mean, that is one thing to look at. So that's just this option, that I wanted to cover. The next option does actually include a 5% increase.
I do get a big difference that may result in the employees getting a raise instead of encumbering that retirement percentage would be future raises. If we gave a 10% raise to employees now, they will reach their ceiling a lot sooner.
It's a good point, John.
So with other counties, I mean, so this is effectively another percent raise if we do a parent contribution. Or is that, have you heard from any other counties, is their raises are essentially to the employees? I mean, 11% is keeping up with CPI. I mean, that's.
I actually
But
didn't.
that's, I mean, that's a pretty big raise, I think, 11%.
A huge raise. It's huge raise. But, I mean, I didn't ask that question to the affiliates. I can ask that question, but a lot of the response, and a lot of the discussion stem around the employer picking up full 100% health insurance benefits. We're seeing that a lot, and an increase of para. I think at this point, a lot of people are kind of tapped out to give those significant salary increases. And so counties and municipalities are having to think outside of the box to be competitive. And that's what has been consistent across the board is health insurance 100% and para increases.
I don't know, it seems like to me, especially dealing with the younger people, they don't appreciate the health insurance as much. You know, they're saying, you know, less expensive health insurance doesn't help me get food on my table.
In my
To me,
opinion,
an increase in pay is, you know, because, you know, we say we have great benefits in our ads and we have benefits or whatever, but, you know, my experience is people are more interested in how much money they're going to make, and the benefits are fine and dandy, but I'd rather give people more money.
in my opinion, I would agree with you, especially with the health insurance, because just like from an HR standpoint, a lot of people actually waive health insurance benefits. They don't participate in it. And as an employee, I 100% appreciate the 85% of the health insurance benefits, because it is a huge benefit. Whenever you have for yourself and you have children that you have to take care of insurance for. I do agree with you that a lot of people are only looking toward salary. However, if you that the majority of the staff is going to be very, very pleased when they get their very first paycheck and have only 2.9% being taken out for, because that's gonna be an additional, for me, it calculated it almost to be $250 per pay period. So that's $500 a month,
It's more money not taxed.
Right.
yes.
Exactly.
So, and I understand where Commissioner Weir's coming from too on a recruiting standpoint. I do see that, and I think that's a part that the sheriff's gonna have to figure out on his end to do that. And as far as county's employees go, I mean, I feel like we're pretty well staffed as far on the county side, and that would help on the retention side of things. As far as
There's a lot of open positions through the schedule.
At the detention center,
the
there's,
detention center,
Yeah.
Detention
and
center.
the sheriff's outside of that.
You know, and I think part of the sheriff's reasoning behind all this, or why we even looked into it, is because of the huge increases that state police, AAP, and the city of Raton. I mean, my goodness, chief of police over there making $110,000 a year.
Oh, I get it. That's exactly my concern too. I'm not saying we shouldn't give the money to the employees. I'm a big advocate for our employees. I just think the way we do it is important. And I think from a recruiting perspective, it would look better if their salaries were more, and it would help them with when they do get to retirement. Than doing it this way.
And I agree on the recruiting that they do, but I think that, you know, Commissioner Trujillo said, I think on a retention basis, I think employees would appreciate this.
Mr. Vito, that's
Oh,
always-
So from my perspective, it sounds like there's an argument of one or the other. I don't equate these two options as being similar at all. One is a cost reduction, the other one is raises. And cost reduction is not the same thing. It can't be considered a raise. It's a cost reduction as far as the employee is concerned. And more money in my pocket, but that's not the equivalent of a raise. I think the county needs to be looking at both options simultaneously. Because retention is the #1 problem. Recruitment's hard as well, but the fact is we don't have the employee base in Colfax County to keep cycling folks in and out of county offices. And the fact is you start losing people. I'll tell you right now, it's a very thin thread some days that keeps me in this county. Because there's plenty of other options for me, my experience, my training knowledge. But looking again personally, in 12 years, I'm about 10% over my starting rate. 10% in 12 years. Whereas inflation has been roughly 2 to 3% per year over that 12 years.
Or like 8%.
So effectively, I'm looking at probably a 10% buying decrease in my buying power for working here for 12 years. So where's the incentive on me staying here when I'm technically earning less money in the greater scheme of things over 12 years of service to this county? And so I don't think this needs to be a one or the other option. I think it needs to be looking at both options and not just in this year and in continuing years. Because truthfully, the county has failed to keep up with cost of living. And they've done it consistently for the last decade and a half.
I just want to say something too. I agree with Tom. My employees have been here over 12 years. And if they don't start seeing these raises, they're gonna go look somewhere else. And I want these people to stay, they're young. I want them to retire from here. They love their job, but they want to see that. Yes, we love that the county pays 85% of the health insurance. That is a great benefit, but they want to see money too. Because they work hard and they're young and they want to stay here. So I agree with Tom. We need to look at both.
Thank you. I would agree to that. I mean, no company that I know has been able to keep up with the price of inflation and over the years. Everyone I talk to, from the city to this other businesses locally, they're not able to do that. But I do have interest in just my fellow commissioners of more so splitting that difference between the two, because the issue with the para is we can't go back. So if we pass this, I mean, it's this from now on.
We have to pass that resolution.
We'd have to pass that resolution.
Yeah, you have to adopt the resolution.
But I mean, this is my first budget cycle, so I'm still learning this, but I don't know what we need to do to see a mix between the two. Or if there's any thought.
You need to ask for it.
From your
We
fellow
could
commissioners.
look at a 60%, maybe, rather than going to the max, like Julie indicated, we could go in a percentage of that, and then look at part of that, and maybe, percent more or whatever, but, just ask for that, and Julie, let you know.
Commissioners, would you like to see that then? Is it-
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm not against giving people more money. I've been saying since I've been elected that we need to pay our people better. I'm just concerned about the presentation and the side effects of the presentation, which is going to be more beneficial for the county. And when I say match the money, I mean, if we figured out how much money people would get if if the county paid 75% of the para, and we then figured out, well, how much would we have to give them a raise so they had that same money in their pocket? So let's count FICA, let's count all those other expenses that are going to be taken out of their pay. So net, they get the same money in their pocket. I'm saying for the county's recruitment process, I think we'd be better off by showing that a salary, and for employees' retirement, it would be better off showing a salary as opposed to covering an expense.
So the other option, I guess, that I had already prepared as well is a 5% salary increase for staff. And that also did produce a balanced budget and left in excess of $249,614. So there is a little bit of room to look at that, or maybe cut back some of the percentage and increase. I mean, I guess I would just ask for direction, what kind of a combination would you like to see for our next workshop?
I would like to see just a combination of the two, maybe, so not a 5%, so do a decrease on the para, and then maybe and whatever the decrease is in the para, but then to the percentage increase in salary. Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to see whatever the net expense of both the 5% COLA and the 75% para, whatever that net amount is gonna be an expense to the county. I'd like to see a plan where it was all given as raises, even if it means, I mean, just think of the attention we get from the public. If the newspapers did an article that says county gives a 20% across the board raise because of inflation, I mean, people would start saying, wow, maybe I need to look at going to work for the county. And I'm saying if we have the money, and we're gonna spend the money anyhow, and if, I mean, I'm just saying we ought to consider that. Because again, if your salary goes up 20%, your retirement is probably gonna go up what? 12%. Because you get paid 60% of your highest 3 years, right? I'm trying to do the math in my head, I'm probably wrong on that, but I'm not saying we don't give the guys the money. I want to give them all the money that we can afford. I'm just saying, let's make sure we're smart about it.
Joe, maybe you can answer this question. If we did just on a flat percentage basis, that it may cost the county more because of all the matches, the fact that all those items that you discussed, it would cost the county more than it would if we just went with the para. But I would entertain to, a combination of the two, definitely. I think that's a very reasonable request.
Okay.
Would that be something we could do? Or maybe we look at two different options where one is a combination
Yes,
and one is all salary increase?
yes, I could do that.
Thank you, John.
No problem. Okay, so we'll skip the discussion about, yes.
Question on this, did this, the preliminary one here, does that also include all of the additional FTEs that have been requested?
Yes, so, after a discussion yesterday with Commissioner Weir, when he pointed out that, he asked me to actually, do a spreadsheet, and it's just a small
Yeah.
kind of riggedy spreadsheet.
It's a point across.
Yes, but I did move everything from the ARPA into their respective departments. And the only one where we exceeded would be the manager's grant writer. Everything else did improve all of the positions. The only person that actually requested an additional position would have been the clerk's office. And then the treasurer, or I'm sorry, the assessor, the sheriff, the road, the detention, and the manager's office all got their positions that were originally budgeted in ARPA back into their respective department. So they all did have that put back in there.
I don't see the treasurer.
No, the treasurer's office didn't have an employee budgeted for ARPA.
Oh, thank you.
It was just, there was 2 sheriffs, 1 assessor, 1 manager, 1 road, and 2 detention. And then, so we did have some capital outlay requests. I took them out of general funds and I actually budgeted them within the capital outlay fund. So I'm going to just kind of quickly arrow down to the capital outlay fund and let you know what those capital outlay requests were. They came from the maintenance, the majority of them, and a couple from the detention. So if you go down to Fund 301-551, I did budget the 100,000 in animal control. We never expended that from last year, so it was earmarked from last year, so I just carried it on over for this fiscal year. The other one was $45,000 for a truck for the maintenance department. $14,000 or $14,500 phone system upgrade. That was from IT. It was actually budgeted last year, but we've had a little bit of difficulty being able to actually move forward with that. So I did carry that over as well. $30,000 for rooftop units at one of our buildings, and $100,000 to replace toilets at BMDC. And $16,000 for a sprinkler system at the hospital. So
The toilets for the detention center, are there issues with the
I'll let Fred answer that question. Oh, it's done? Maybe Regina might answer the question, I'm sorry.
The toilet replacement at the facility, are these issues with the new toilets already with the?
No, I believe, this is the one from a couple of years ago where they had budgeted so as to get the newer toilets in the older facility.
I see.
And I believe we've only done 10 so far.
Okay. I thought that's what it was. I just wanted to ask. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
I do want to say something here with this. I mean, I'd like to see more money put towards the county buildings that are here. I mean, even long before I see issues across county buildings that have not been addressed, that need to be addressed, so that we're to maintain our assets, preparing to live in here, maybe maintain some of the county offices here. And then also there's another thing for, this is to do with the roads as well. I know in my district, we have paved roads, some of the subdivisions, and I don't know as far as filling potholes, filling cracks, in Commissioner Weir, we have some paved roads, we have paved roads up in your area.
Not county roads.
I'd like to see something for if the roads department, and I don't know how this works in the register or here, for getting a contractor out there to fill in any kind of cracks, preserve the pavement, of keeping any potholes that are out there. I don't know if that is that included in your budget?
In the past, we we haven't applied for special projects funding to do repairs on the cracks. But I believe that is one of the
Yeah.
application has been for a
Yeah,
couple of years now.
there's some transportation grants that we usually use for gravel and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, Glenn, if you can answer that, I'm not sure what areas his transportation grants cover.
Well, if you come up here just so we can hear you. Thank you.
As far as I know, the grants that we have out are paving of the part that makes the subdivision. There's 3 roads on that, and the replacing with Losser Gap Bridge on 811. That's all we have, as far as I know, as far as paving.
And you have the cat co-op and school bus,
Yes,
those are also, but I don't know what roads you have on those.
yeah, there's 3, it's all gravel projects.
So that's something I would like to just address, because I don't want to. It's hard for I think the roads department now, if it's dirt and gravel, that's another story. They can go in there, blade it, throw new gravel down, we have the pit, everything else, but the pavement, you can't go in there and do much with the pavement as far as patch a hole or, so I feel like that's something that we need to budget for, not just kind of hope on a grant. To maintain the roads.
I agree, especially the roads that are already paved.
Yeah, and I'm just looking to maintain those roads as they currently have. So.
Yeah, with the one that part of Mesa subdivision, isn't that what that was for, was to repair and improve those? Or is this a new?
It's a new pavement.
Okay.
It's to pave gravel roads.
Because like I said, I know Robert and I have done an application for just what you're talking about outside, but I agree. You know, it's but one of the problems that we ran into is that Razio retired and sold out. There's not a local contract. It's hard to get somebody to bring in because we have to for small projects.
Yeah.
We have to piggyback something else
Yeah.
that is taking place locally to do that. So there has to be a lot of pre-planning.
Yeah, with more so the paving projects.
Yes.
Correct? Yeah, no, and I totally understand that. I believe working with the city and DOT to do our RFPs, get them in line to really help on the mobilization costs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the city of Breton does their own hot mix order. And maybe even we could get them to do it, pay them to do it. Instead of going out to a vendor, I mean, they have the capability to do it.
Yeah, they do have a hot mix machine and a crew. I mean, maybe that's something that road manager, county manager, will touch base with the city and see if they were interested in that. And maybe if so, give us a rough number of what they might charge us to maybe work it into our budget. Because I'm sure we got the grant money to do it. We can put some matching funds. And if we don't maintain them, they're just gonna fall apart. So my biggest thing is I want to maintain what we have, even everything from roads to physical structures. Just to maintain a good asset.
So in capital outlay, after we budgeted the $305,000, that leaves a remaining balance of $192,000. So if it would exceed the $192,000, I would maybe see if commission would perhaps think about, looking into our reserve balances, our investment balances, and perhaps some of our beginning cash balances. Because that would all, I'm sure it would probably exceed $200,000.
So also, so I have 2 questions. One is, first of all, does that capital outlay include the $100,000 that we got from Joseph Sanchez this year. That's supposed to go towards the repeaters up on Green Mountain. Or
No,
I believe we got some additional money from the Congress.
no, all of those legislative appropriations are budgeted, within the 472. So, legislative appropriations that have to do with grant funding or, so the vehicles that were awarded to the sheriff's department, vehicles that were awarded to the road department, all of those things that were actually awarded, but the grant agreements that we received are all budgeted in legislative appropriation. Capital outlay is just the capital portion that we get from sheriff's. That is for capital projects.
So, my other thing is, weren't we talking about, don't we need a new building for the roads department? I mean, I still haven't gone inside that. I've only seen from the outside, but the reports are horrific.
Yeah, I would actually walk through them. With my son's walk through that.
I mean, if you look at our summary here, even though on the side, Jonah shows how much we would have as far as current year revenue minus current year expenses, so we would only have 250,000 remaining. But we have cash balances of almost $8 million in the general fund. I mean, we can afford these things. We have a lot of capital projects. I mean, we should be going down our ICIP and picking things off with that money.
I do want to just report, we made it out, so I did a direct spending, and I wouldn't hold our breath on this just because the way everything's playing out in Washington, but it did move on from the request I made for the road department as far as updating our county buildings, the security, et cetera, has moved on from Lujan's office and the Senate Appropriations Committee. So I haven't heard it anymore, but as I hear more, I'll let everyone know.
Back on this issue, I mean, y'all see, I mean, what I'm saying is correct, right? I mean, we have and this says no investment, so I assume that doesn't include money that the treasurer has in investments.
Yeah, I haven't budgeted any reinvestments.
So none of this money on these reports include what the treasurer's invested, which is considerably more, but in general fund, we have $8 million. Now, that's cash in the bank. Unfortunately, that's not reoccurring funds, so it's not money we can spend on salaries, but it's certainly money we could spend on capital projects. And why aren't we doing more? I mean, we should, I guarantee you that $8 million is keeping us from getting grants. Because people look at our grant requests and they say, oh, you've got a bunch of cash, you don't need it that bad. And it's not, listen, we're in an inflationary period. That money is losing value every day. It doesn't make sense for us to be sitting on it. And I don't want to spend us down to zero. I mean, we need to be smart about it. But I guarantee you, there's $8 million there. If we spent half of it this year, well, it'd be hard to spend half of it, to be honest with you. The projects will take time. You have to get all the studies and things for your buildings or whatever it is. So if we started the process of spending half of it this year, it'd probably take us 2 to 3 years to actually expend it. And if we're adding 250, even 250,000 a year over the next several years, and that's kind of what we've done, at least since I've been here. I don't know why we're not spending that money. I mean, we could fix all the things that we're worried about, grants at the airport. We could get the roads department a new building. Maybe we could get some new equipment. You know, the detention center. I mean, all those things on the ICIP. I mean, what is the value of our ICIP? I can't remember. It's like 12 million or something. I mean, we'd make a significant dent in that. It's just this commission has to say, let's go spend that money.
Chairman.
Well, I definitely think the road department needs to be building. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. We tried to give them the one that, when we did the remodel at the detention center, the old building that was out there that housed the district attorney, but, you know, I don't know what something like that would cost. You know, I don't know if it's a figure between now and the next budget year, to get that going, or include that in the capital outlay. But we've got some projects. This room here needs some work. There's no ways, you know.
Without question, I'm shocked after the floods we had in the basement that this place is still standing.
But, and then totally, you know, mirror what Commissioner Trujillo said, we need to take care of the assets that we own, so.
And I mean, if you look at the buildings that we're putting in for the fire departments, I mean, they're $500,000 to $700,000 a pop. I'm sure we could spend that kind of money for the roads department and get them, you know, something that would last them for 50 years. And we have the money.
And that's an urgent need right now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's crazy because if nothing else, it's a safety issue for us. I mean, we're gonna get sued.
Can we use that money to pay roads out there?
Sorry.
I should just, we could use that money to pay the roads outside of the county.
I'm moving out of.
It's capital, anything capital we could utilize. I mean, even, I got a clarification that even if you have one-time money, that you can spend it on reoccurring expenditures as long as you have enough money to cover like 4 to 5 years of those reoccurring expenditures. Because by 4 or 5 years, who knows what's going to be going on? So, I mean, we could use it for whatever we want. It's general fund money.
Then I have a request. I just moved out
I'm
of.
not gonna pave in front of your house.
You just have to do a little piece, because I'm moving out to York Canyon and it's paved like right there, and I just need a little bit more. That'd be nice if the whole York Canyon.
Yeah, this probably wasn't the forum to that request.
I don't, we would have to look into it more. I know like the city has ordinances in place where if they accept the subdivision or something like that, they cannot use money, city money to pay roads. So I've learned that within the city. So I don't know if there's anything like that similar to here in Colfax. But no, I would, I'd ask Jonah to entertain putting some money on the budget for a new building for the roads department. Also, perhaps.
I think we ought to just go down, I mean, my recommendation, Mr. Chairman, is to look at the ICIP and go down and see what we could do to spend $4 or $5 million and knock items off the ICIP.
Our treasurer's shaking her head here. Lydia, would you like to address that,
I mean,
please?
I have money in the checking account, and the reason why is because we're getting really good interest. I'm gonna start, putting some out there, but I think we need to see what our costs are too, because we need, I mean, I could see a couple million, but I'm not sure about 4 or 5 million. I mean, I get scared about
But
that.
this isn't invested money. The money we're talking about right now, according to Jonah, this is not money you're holding in investments.
It's not in the checking account.
This is cash in our bank account.
Right, but I'm telling you, the reason why it's in the bank account is because the interest is much higher than CDs.
I see.
So what I would,
That's why it's in there. I have Linda checking it daily. I'm gonna start moving it out to investments. I probably today, if I get a chance, and it's only gonna be 90 days, but the interest is better. The reason why it's sitting there, when I was treasurer back in 5 to 12, I kept like 50,000 and then would cash the CD, redeem the CD to pay, you know, our expenses. But the checking account is getting a lot better interest.
But does that, if this is general fund money, does that really change the need for it, whether it's invested or not?
A lot just.
I mean, why would we hold on to that cash? Because right now, we're losing value on that cash every day it sits there, because the interest rates, even the CDs, are half of the inflation rate.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting it at 5.1. And now it's at 4.66. I'm gonna try to invest a couple of,
For how long will the CD is that?
the 90-day and the 182-day have better interest rates. So I'd like to do, $1 million, 3 million. I mean, we could visit with Jonah and see what's, how much we really need to kind of keep there and what we'd be comfortable carrying us through.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think, this doesn't include investments, so, how they have their investments is on a completely different schedule. This is just the unaudited beginning cash balances, that I actually just took from the treasurer's report, from the last quarter, treasurer's report, and averaged them out and calculated them, and those are my projections. But the ending cash balances,
Maybe it's fine, I'm just old school. I'm like,
no, I'm kind of hesitant to do. I don't know what she has in her investments, but
As far as what I see exactly where Commissioner Weir's coming from. So if you look at it, everything's gone up 11% this year in cost. Interest rates are now up to, let's just say 4 or 5%. So we're losing 6% each year that we hold this money. We're losing buying power. So it's what a building was going to cost us $500,000 this last year. It's going to cost us $700,000 this year. So I do see that point. And then what I would ask is, let's pick off some of the top. And I'm not looking to go spend all $8 million, no, because eventually what I'd love to do is the prior commissions have been good at saving this money, but at the same point, government should not save money. Government needs to be broke. We need to give back to the constituents, make sure we're taking care of our employees. So with that, we do have our mandatory savings. But I do think we do need to spend, but with the grant writer, I do want to leverage those. So I want to have money saved to leverage any future grants we may get to have matching funds that are needed to get those grants. Right. So Joseph, did you have?
Yes, good. Can I make a request of prioritize putting the urinal on the first floor men's restroom, please? It was taken out
The urinal?
years ago, and it hasn't been replaced. I brought it up multiple times. I assume it's too expensive.
I think maybe we should also ask the county manager, if we're gonna take this perspective, that maybe we should go to the department heads and say, okay, we're looking at, this isn't just to get money from the state through the ICIP, which is generally what it is. It's to get grants and stuff. This is like, what do we need from a capital perspective to make sure the county is operating and serving our constituents at full bore? And get a list of those things and let the commission consider it. And, now's the time to do it.
I would like to see, maybe some focus be put on this building, because there's several issues with this building here, like Joseph said, the urinal, the ADA compliance. There's a tremendous amount of things on that list that need attention, and so maybe if we go ahead and try to appropriate something now to purchase the building for the roads department, because we all agree on that, and I think we all are in agreement that we need to look at taking care of some capital improvements, but maybe not include all of those in this budget, because I think that's something we need to look at. We don't have enough time in the next 3 weeks to do that, and we can always just do that as a line item, a bar later on, and prioritize that. Give the county manager time to bring the ICIP before us after the budget, and let's prioritize what we want to address at that point in time, but not try to incorporate it as part of our budget process, because I think it bogs down.
Well, I understand that, and I'm not in total disagreement with that, but I will tell you that I mean, this is just a preliminary budget. We really have 2 months. Really 3 months, in May, June, and July, before we have to do a final budget.
Our preliminary stuff at the end of the month.
Yeah, preliminary, yeah, it has to be submitted by.
Preliminary is due in June, but we can make adjustments to it. I'm just saying, continuing the process, because once we issue a preliminary, we can adjust it for the final. So, but I think it's important to try and incorporate this into the budget now so that we have the momentum and we're thinking about how we're going to expend this money in other areas, and it's best to look at these things all together, I think.
I think that the treasurer obviously needs to be included, to have an idea of what she's comfortable expending.
Yeah, like if Jonah has it in the budget and she sees it, with what we have.
Yeah, no, and you need to be brought in definitely, because if we're gonna spend any money, you're gonna be doing investments and stuff like that. We need to make sure we're kind of all on the same page here, so we're not losing money because we're pulling from an investment if we
So-
move forward. But
Where I would say we would be able to have a little bit of room would be using the beginning cash balances in your old time list. So right now, these figures off to the side only include,
3 can't see those.
you can't see it,
Not on the screen.
The-
Zoom thing.
There you go. Thank
how
you.
about that? Okay. So, right here, these totals that I say is gonna be able to produce a balanced budget only includes, current revenue.
Gotcha.
Revenue that's gonna be
Reoccurring.
reoccurring that we have already collected and projected that we collect. So whenever I say that the hold harmless and the additional 112 can be used as general fund money, that's only using the GRT that's gonna generate for this fiscal year. So the beginning balance of the hold harmless and the 112, there's 3.8 million in the hold harmless and 1.9 million in the additional 112. And that's beginning cash balances. That's unspent money. I don't know, the treasurer will probably be able to answer you a little bit better if you have that invested or if that's just in the checking account.
Just all the monies are.
In the checking account?
Yeah, I don't have any of those monies like set aside it's just investments.
When they come across to my side and whenever I budget them, I budget investments all as general fund because all of the money that she's investing is general fund.
Yeah, so.
So this doesn't include investments. Whatever investments that the treasurer's office has is on a completely separate spreadsheet, on a
Right, we get
completely
that
separate
report.
budget. This is just the beginning cash balances or the ending cash balances that we're gonna transfer over at the end of the fiscal year and use it as the beginning cash balances.
Okay, so what we're talking about with the buildings and ICIP, I mean, it could be outside of the budget, that's essentially. So, but I would like to put it more on a reoccurring basis, money for maybe, and I think it's well within reason of that 219,000 that's still left to make small upgrades to the buildings and to upkeep, like the paved roads, for instance. I don't think that costs more than $20,000 a year to fill some potholes. I could be wrong on that price, but I'm just thinking.
It's expensive. Yeah, we were, Village of Angel Fire was looking at, if you've been up there lately, the North Angel Fire Road is terrible shape. And just to fill the potholes in it was gonna be $350,000, and it's only about 1.5 miles long.
And just,
We don't have to tackle it,
Yeah, I'm just saying,
if we do it each
it might
year.
be more expensive.
and just so you know, on capital outlay, that's all of the GRT that's going to the capital outlay. However, there's a transfer, and that's the intercept that goes to the debt service payment. So the reason why we have this amount of money is because for probably the last, I'm gonna say 5 years, we haven't budgeted any capital projects out of that fund. Because we weren't getting enough GRT to actually pay the full payment on debt service. So it's just like an intercept agreement, so the way the agreement is written is the portion of capital outlay gets intercepted to go to the debt service for the detention center. If there is any left, then it goes into the capital outlay fund. If that doesn't generate enough, then it actually will intercept out of the additional 112. So that's where you see this transfer out. So consistently over the last couple of years, we've been actually able to generate enough revenue into the capital portion, so it hasn't been able to intercept that. So in my opinion, it would probably be more beneficial to budget those kinds of projects out of your hold harmless. This is in your 112th. Well, especially your hold harmless, because your hold harmless is very, very, very few times.
So do you see that as the increase from internet sales tax that we're seeing, or just GRT in general overall?
Yeah, it's GRT in general across the board. I was able, and this is just going out from, the treasurer's report and going back for the last couple of years, I very comfortably increased the additional 12 from 270 to 400,000, and the whole time list from 750 to 985,000. For the past 3 years, we've been exceeding our projections significantly.
Do you know what the internet sale GRT has generated by chance?
I don't.
Since they've implemented that 2 years ago?
I don't, and the reason being is that, Tax and Rev has changed how they record all of their GRTs. Now it's just coming through it's just a lump sum when you get the ACH. It's not, it's not broken down, it's up to the county to actually break it down. And because commission actually voted to consider all of that general fund money, the only reason why I break down the additional 112 in the whole harmless, the way we do is because we still record it into each fund that way, but the internet sales is just put into general fund, into the regular GRT.
And when you report to the state, they're all combined in your quarterlies, right?
Yes. Yeah, the only thing that it records, the only thing that we have to record manually is the hold harmless and the capital outlay, because we do have a debt service agreement. And those are just intercepts that we have to record and document.
Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
Is there anything?
No, that's everything for me. I can go back to the drawing board for our next meeting, which the 16th, correct?
Yes.
And that one I will need to send.
You will be zooming? Okay.
And I do have one request too, since we're talking about just using some funds that we do have. I've asked Tom over here. I know an emergency happens. I want the constituents to be taken care of. So if you have something that could be a one-time cost that you think would be beneficial to all of the county, part of the county, please bring it in front of us. Because I know one thing I don't like is being dependent on the federal government per se, because when for instance, what comes to mind is, sure, we have the grant for the cots and stuff like that, but during the Herman's Peak fire, we got the call to send it, and I feel if we send it, I don't know if it's gonna come back, or what if we have a fire spark here, where we don't have cots for our constituents, so I wanna take care of us first, as people, so I mean, if it's a one-time cost, within reason, I'd rather take care of Colfax.
Yeah, along that line, Tom, I agree with the chairman's comment, and something like, emergency supplies like cots and medical equipment, whatever, dispersed throughout the county instead of centralized. I think would be smart, because my concern is something's gonna start, we're gonna get cut off, and we're not gonna be able to deliver it. And it's not a, you know, I know you have a plan in your head because that's the way you think, but just in case type stuff, if we have the funds, I think it'd be good for the county to have a distributed emergency equipment, you know, across the different fire stations or whatever. My thoughts. Mr. Chairman, before we end, I do have some questions on the, on this. How can we have several funds with negative ending cash balances?
Because I haven't, I haven't gotten to that point. Pretty much the focus was on general fund and everything that affects general fund. The rest of them is gonna be debt service, fire fund. I did finally receive the remainder of the fire funds on there, so I could go ahead and update those. And so they're not gonna be, I just haven't gotten to that point yet. My main
kinda
focus
thought that, I
was
just
general
wanted to make
funds
sure.
and anything that affects general fund.
Yeah, the one that kind of caught my eye was the, I guess, what is it, the Department of Transportation grant,
Yeah,
218,
yeah, so.
negative 1.3 million.
Yeah, Glenn and I had to take an opportunity to actually sit down and go over some of his transportation grants. Transportation grants, I think we calculated 3 years of transportation grants that we need to work up and calculate. So that way we can make sure that we have the correct dollar amounts there. So we're in the process of going through and making sure that we have grant agreements on all of them, and we know the status of what those grants are.
And my last comment, Mr. Chairman, is on the animal shelter. You know, we threw $100,000 at it last year that we didn't spend, and it was a guess. The commission said, how much money do we want to spend? I really think if we have the time, we should try and get better numbers. And now that we're going to have the agreement in place, or hopefully we will, it's on the next agenda. We need to start moving on that, because the other commissioners don't know there is state statute that requires us to provide those services, and we're out of compliance. Now, we always have been, and there's never been a consequence to it, but I'd prefer for the county not to be out of compliance. You never know when somebody might get upset, and decide to sue us because we're not offering those services.
And I think if that discussion is gonna be had at the next commission meeting, then I think the sheriff needs to be here, because that's gonna fall under his department, and you're talking about aggravated fees as well. So, you know, he needs to be included in that discussion. So, go ahead.
I guess I do have one last question on the, what do we have to do as far as the grant writer? Within this budget, is that included in there, or
It
is that,
is included.
that'd be bringing on another?
Yes, so again, I apologize, it's our error, my error. When Commissioner King made a friendly amendment to exceed, or to not exceed full-time positions in the manager's office, I guess in my mind, it meant budget. And so we didn't exceed the budget, and it was also a number in there on my, if you look on the actual, now I have so many things open, I can't find it. But if you look on the salary schedule, when I transferred that over, I copied and pasted the very last row, and I failed to change the number count from, I have 2 tens. So I didn't update. I copied this and pasted it right back down here and didn't change it from 10 to 11. So I guess commission is gonna have to vote to either not do a grant agreement or not do a grant writer, or we can also reallocate. I have all of, I have 50% of our solid waste coordinator salary coming out of commission or out of the manager's general fund. I could possibly look at reallocating her entire salary out of solid waste.
Yeah, but which fund it comes out of isn't the point. The point is that the motion that the commission approved was that there would not be a full-time equivalent added. And as a matter of fact, I think the manager had said that he wasn't going to replace the solid waste tech position, and that's how it was going to come in. But I believe that solid waste tech position has been replaced now.
I think, as I recall, I think we were going to use Danielle's position
Yes,
to do that as a vacancy and bring in the grant writer.
right, we weren't gonna advertise, and so the solid waste, and,
Danielle's position been filled.
well, Virginia took it over,
Virginia took it over.
so we didn't hire, we just,
I know, but it's still an FTE. It's.
So I
So
guess,
we didn't utilize the FTE that Danielle held in her position.
yeah,
We didn't get rid of that FTE in order to get a grant writer.
right, and I think that could have possibly been where the confusion came from, because I do have two separate, so the solid waste tech is actually budgeted solely out of solid waste. So it doesn't fall within the manager's salary schedule. So it doesn't affect the employee count, if that makes sense. That's budgeted on the manager's account, because I have two employees budgeted out of solid waste. So I don't know, somehow, some way, I think it got mistaken, that we could actually fill the tech. And maybe it was just our assumption because it's not budgeted under the managers, it's budgeted out of the solid waste. I don't know what happened, but nonetheless, I do have the grant writer position budgeted under the manager's office, and I have a solid waste tech budgeted out of the solid waste.
So if it's added,
I'm sorry.
so if the grant writer is hired and added, we're adding an FTE.
Yeah,
Just want to make sure everybody's clear.
yes, it will be an additional activity. If the commission votes to, it will be an additional activity.
Well, I guess my concern is that the commission voted on something already. It's not being executed the way it was voted on. My other concern is in solid waste, speaking of solid waste. So with solid waste, there's a pretty big drop in the cash in that fund. So I guess it leads me to believe that there's still a remaining balance, I think, of like 50 grand at the end of the year. But it's starting off the year with what, 350 or? Which fund that is? It is. No, I'm sorry, it's starting off with 184, revenues at 375. Expenditures of 506, so it's ending, it's got a decreasing cash balance, and it doesn't look like the revenues are supporting the expenses in the solid waste. And even though we may be okay this year, my concern is if you look at $130,000 drop in cash in the current year, and we only start next year with 52 cash, we're not going to have enough money. It's not going to be a self-funding department.
Okay, so I guess I'm not understanding where you see a decrease.
So if you look at Fund 501,
Right.
your beginning cash is 184,000. You're saying revenue of 375, and then expenditures of 506
Okay.
for an ending cash balance of 52,000.
Okay,
So your cash balance is declining by 130,000. I'm just concerned that that fund has always been a self-funding fund.
Not entirely, because you also have to capture, originally, it was also part of the, go up to
environmental,
the environmental, yes, thank you, John. That's also included with what is designed to sustain that.
It was what?
That's what, that revenue from the environmental is also what was originally designed to support that service,
Yes,
to include both of those revenues, not
Yeah.
just,
So we use
not just
the
the
money,
fees
which
from
fund is in
collection.
417,
I'm sorry?
417. Yeah, you can use the environmental guarantee to supplement the solid waste. I didn't transfer anything because we didn't have to transfer anything this year. And we actually haven't had to transfer anything in the past couple of years.
I think since we raised the fees,
So
we
what's
haven't had to
the
transfer.
revenue from the environmental? Oh, I was looking over here, sorry.
No,
Okay, so we have another 100,000 a year in environmental that can be spent on the solid waste.
Yes, I didn't budget a transfer to it because we didn't need it. But,
All right, no, I just didn't realize that, so
Yes.
that, I mean, it's still declining, but it's not at the same level, right? Because instead of 130, it's declining at a rate of 30,000 a year.
correct.
So we've got a few more years left.
And I do anticipate an increase in solid waste this year. I think that, now beginning January 1st, this next billing, they will start assessing the penalty if there's any past due payments, that they'll start assessing the penalty and late fee. So I do anticipate an increase in that fee.
Did we start assessing those late fees a few months ago? That came before the commission, before the new commission was on.
Yeah, I think it was going to take effect net this week, I think. That went out in the due date.
I
I
can,
thought it was gonna take effect immediately.
the first penalty will be assessed at the last week of June. Reason being is all of the stuff we were charging for was still
Oh,
under the
okay, so
last.
they started accruing back then, but they actually won't be assessed until June.
Yeah, so our first bills for this year came out in March, and so we give them until June to pay, and that's when we start assessing penalties, and then every 3 months they'll get penalties.
So they didn't start. So is that contract up, that solid waste contract with Tri-State
In 2025.
2025? Were we able to reduce the payments that we were making to them or anything for the service they're providing? Because it's still not, I mean, we have little splotches of acceptable service, but they're not picking up according to the contract. They're not picking up twice a week, or they weren't.
So they are back to picking up twice a week. We were having some problems with the roll-offs this last couple of weeks. The trash cans are being picked up on time. Now we're fighting with roll-offs, and as far as of yesterday, everything was picked up. We have to keep up with it to make sure that there's continuing to do that. And yes, we did get a discount on 2 bills, the one for January and February.
How much was that?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. 1 month I asked for, I think, 11,000 off, and then the next month was like 4,000 something. I have all the figures.
Anything else? Commissioners?
I would like us to consider adding an FTE to the road department. Well, no, they got the administrative, they gave it up, but according to this one, it's not there.
Because it shows this thing Jonah did, shows they're going from 10 to 11.
If you had 11, but they agreed.
They had 11, but they gave up a position to get the administrative assistant.
Oh,
What
I
I'm
see.
asking is to
But this
add-
FTE should include the administrative assistant.
It does.
So So,
I don't understand. They didn't give, they still had 10 last year and they got 11 this year. Or in this budget.
Bill?
So I have the open position for administrative assistant, and then I believe that they have another, equipment operator available.
the salary schedule's not showing.
Okay,
So that's why I brought it up.
wait a minute. That's correct. So you want another one in addition to that?
You're showing 11. There's no, but I'd like to see them have it, because, you know, at one point in time, we had 15, and they kept giving them up, and I think we're to a point where it's costing us from a safety standpoint.
Yeah, I think from a safety and
Not having
retention.
balance.
I mean, those guys are working like crazy. I mean, this winter, they did a miraculous job in the valley, you know, coming up from, you know, down valley area, and trying to remove snow. I mean, I agree. I actually think we need to go back to having 2 in the valley, to be quite honest with you. There's some additional housing additions that are going in right now. And they're trying to build their roads to the specs that are required for the county. And I certainly think that the road department up in the valley can use too, especially trying to keep the airport open. I mean, y'all did yeoman's work on keeping the airport open, but it was in addition to the work you're already having to do on the roads. And as we all know, up there, even when it's not snowing, the roads are getting covered with snow because of the wind. So it's like a constant battle. I mean, I really think that I agree with you, Commissioner Kern. I think roads department could use some more staff.
So you want to increase to 12, correct?
Yes, sir.
And commissioners, I would agree with both of you. I think that's very important. And if you recall, we had significant winter storms this year. And not only did they keep the roads open up in the Angel Fire Eagle Nest area, but we were actually, we had to divert assets to our fire stations up there, and things like that, to open those up, because they were completely closed off. And after they did that, and they went out and worked on several weekends on overtime in order to keep the airport open. So I couldn't agree with those comments.
Yeah, I think that overtime, that's my concern about retention. I mean, guys like overtime, or people like overtime, I guess I should say. But, you know, there comes a point when they don't want the overtime because they're worked too hard. And then that's when you start running people off.
And that's when you start having mistakes and
Mistakes, yep.
can happen and accidents.
Cattle guards pulled up.
Anything else, commissioners?
Good point.
All right, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting, 10:46.
Thank you.
Thank you all for showing up. We appreciate it. Hey, Lydia, I have a question.
Can I just leave? Committee?